Black CEO told, "We don't serve people like you." 7 minutes later, she owned the whole place. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The air inside the glass ember was chilled perfection, soft jazz, polished marble, and the quiet shimmer of wealth trying not to look expensive. Then came the sound that cut it all in half. "No table for you." The words hit like a slap in a place that prided itself on silence. Clara James, the front manager, didn't whisper them. She delivered them like a verdict. Her hand clutched a reservation slip. Dr. Naomi Pierce, 7 p.m., VIP table, and with a practiced flick, she tore it clean down the middle. A man in a navy blazer stopped mid-sip of his wine. A couple by the door froze. Somewhere behind the counter, a young hostess bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. Naomi didn't move. She stood at the counter, posture calm, eyes steady, her pale pink suit catching the amber light from the chandelier. No diamond watch. No security. Just the stillness of someone who had been here before. Clara leaned closer, voice dipped in condescension. "We're fully booked tonight, ma'am. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable somewhere, casual." Behind her, a waiter tried not to look. Someone muttered, "What's the problem?" Clara straightened, folding the torn reservation. "No problem," she said sharply. "Just enforcing our policy." Naomi's lips barely parted. "Your policy?" Clara crossed her arms. "We reserve the right to deny service." Quote. The sentence hung in the air like perfume, sweet to her, sour to everyone else. Across the lobby, a woman in a floral dress whispered to her date. Did she just? He shushed her, pulling out his phone like everyone else, quietly recording the unfolding humiliation. Naomi's gaze didn't waver. Her calm wasn't submission. It was patience sharpening to a point. The young hostess, Isabella Tran, stepped forward, trembling. "Excuse me, Miss Clara," she said softly. "Her name is in the system. I saw it earlier. Table 4. Clara turned, eyes narrowing. "Then you didn't see clearly. Get back to your station." Isabella froze. The hush returned. Even the music seemed to stop. Naomi reached into her clutch, pulled out her phone, and tapped once. Quiet, deliberate. On the other end of the city, a notification blinked to life in a corporate office tower, with her name at the top. Eclipse Dining Group owner, login verified. But no one here knew that. Not yet. Clara was still talking, oblivious to the storm building in real time. "You can leave now," she said, her tone rehearsed, her smile tight. "This isn't the kind of place you just walk into." Naomi tilted her head, almost amused. "And what kind of place is that?" "The kind," Clara said, "where people know their place." A couple gasped. Isabella stepped back. Naomi didn't blink. That was the moment the entire restaurant learned what quiet power really looked like. She didn't shout. She didn't plead. She simply picked up one half of the torn reservation slip from the counter, smoothed it out, and said softly, "You might want to keep this. It's about to become evidence." Then she turned slightly toward the camera of a stunned guest, eyes steady, voice measured, breaking the fourth wall as if she knew we were all watching. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Naomi. She placed the paper on the counter, the torn edges aligning like the first move in a war no one saw coming. Somewhere, a clock ticked towards 7:07. 7 minutes until everything turned. Before she ever set foot inside the glass ember, Dr. Naomi Pierce had already designed this moment, though she didn't expect it to sting this much. The restaurant wasn't random. It was one of 37 high-end venues under Eclipse Dining Group, her company newly acquired after a quiet merger finalized just last week. The staff didn't know yet. The paperwork was sealed under NDA until Monday morning. She had planned to visit discreetly tonight, to feel the atmosphere from a guest's perspective, to see if the culture her money had bought was worthy of her name. She wanted to believe it would be. Now, watching Clara stand at the marble counter, she realized how naive that hope had been. Naomi had come alone, dressed in a rose-pink suit, tailored but soft, paired with nude heels and a white silk blouse. No flashy designer labels, no entourage. Her only accessory was a slim black clutch holding a phone that could unlock an empire. To anyone else, she looked like a quiet professional waiting for a reservation. To Clara, she looked like a mistake that needed correcting. Naomi studied her reflection in the polished surface of the counter. Beneath the calm, she saw the same young woman who had once been told, at 25, "We don't serve your kind here." Back then, it was a rooftop bar in Atlanta. The waiter had smiled while saying it, and she'd swallowed her pride like a stone. That humiliation had lived in her memory ever since, not as a wound, but as fuel. She had built her company on one rule: respect shouldn't depend on appearances. And here she was again, proving why that rule still mattered. Across the lobby, the hostess Isabella hovered, torn between fear and conscience. She kept glancing at Naomi, silently apologizing with her eyes. Naomi gave her a subtle nod, reassurance, forgiveness, and warning all at once. Clara, meanwhile, had begun performing for her audience. "You see," she said to a nearby couple, her voice dripping with authority, "people think a card and a smile can buy class, but class isn't about money." Her words hung in the air, brittle and self-righteous. Naomi exhaled slowly. The nerve it took to insult someone inside their own property that was almost impressive. A tall waiter approached, whispering something into Clara's ear. Her expression hardened. "Security's on their way," she said flatly. "Good," Naomi replied, voice low. "Let's make this official." For the first time, Clara hesitated. There was something unsettling in Naomi's calm, a stillness that didn't fit the script of a humiliated guest. Naomi placed her phone gently on the counter. A single vibration buzzed beneath her palm, a message from her executive assistant. "Carla, ownership transfer completed. Local management still active until Monday." Naomi typed 2 words back: "Activate review." Her gaze lifted to Clara. "I just need you to confirm one thing," she said evenly. Clara crossed her arms. "Which is?" Naomi's tone was surgical. "That you just denied service to a paying customer." Clara scoffed. "I denied service to a liar." Naomi smiled faintly, not joy, not spite, just the recognition of irony tightening into destiny. "Then this will be your last denial," she said softly. The sound of her phone pinged again. Another message appeared on the screen. "Carla, system log recording. Proceed when ready." Quoth. Outside, headlights flickered against the glass walls as the city buzzed on, unaware that inside this immaculate dining room, power was rearranging itself molecule by molecule. Naomi picked up the torn reservation slip, folding it neatly. 7 minutes, she whispered under her breath, not to threaten, but to count. 7 minutes before every person in this room would learn who she truly was. By the time the clock struck 7:04, the mood inside the glass ember had curdled. What had been quiet luxury now felt like a courtroom wrapped in candlelight. Every pair of eyes pretended not to stare, but they did. Clara James straightened her blazer, mistaking authority for dignity. She had worked her way up from hostess to manager in 5 years, and she wore that climb like armor. To her, control was survival. And nothing threatened that control faster than someone who didn't fit the picture she had painted of acceptable guests. Quote. Naomi Pierce stood across from her, still calm, still pink, still perfectly unbothered. The faintest smile traced her lips, but her eyes sharp, assessing were moving like a chess player who'd already seen the next 10 moves. Behind Clara, a young waiter named Ethan Cole whispered, "Why not just check the reservation again?" Clara shot him a glare that could have cracked glass. "Because I know what I saw," she hissed. "People like this, they always claim they booked something they can't afford." Naomi heard her. Everyone did. A few guests shifted in their seats. A man at the bar whispered to his partner, "Is she serious?" His partner nudged him to stay quiet, but her expression said everything: disgust, disbelief, and something close to fear. Then came the low, even sound of Naomi's voice. Tell me, Miss James, when you say people like this, what exactly do you mean? Clara froze for half a second. Don't twist my words, she said too quickly. Naomi tilted her head. I don't have to. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. It was surgical, clean, and it made everyone in the room uncomfortable. At that moment, a tall man in a gray suit entered the restaurant's security lead, name tag gleaming. Dylan Ford. Problem here? He asked. Tone flat but eyes alert. Clara gestured toward Naomi. Guest claims she has a VIP reservation. None found. Becoming disruptive. Quote. Dylan turned to Naomi. Ma'am, I'll need you to step outside. Naomi didn't move. On what grounds? Refusal to comply with staff direction. He replied mechanically. Naomi smiled faintly. Policy, right? Yes, ma'am. Good, she said. I wrote that policy. He blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. Before he could speak again, a quiet voice broke through the same young hostess from earlier, Isabella Tran. Her hands trembled, but her voice didn't. She's telling the truth, Isabella said. Her name's in the system. I saw it at check-in. Clara spun, eyes flaring. Enough. You're done here, Isabella. Clock out and hand in your badge. The girl flinched but didn't move. Instead, she looked to Naomi. I'm sorry this happened, she whispered. Naomi's gaze softened for a heartbeat. Don't be, she said gently. You just passed your first test. Dylan hesitated, sensing the hierarchy had shifted. Miss James, maybe we should. Clara cut him off. No. This is my restaurant tonight, and I say she leaves. Naomi looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the witnesses who'd been pretending not to care. Interesting, she murmured. How many people can watch injustice in real time and call it good service? The words hit like a quiet thunderclap. Someone lowered their phone, ashamed. Someone else raised theirs higher. Clara stepped closer, voice dripping with irritation. You have 5 seconds to leave before I call the police. Naomi's expression didn't change. Then you'd better dial fast, she said, reaching for her phone, because your next call will be from my office. For a moment, Clara looked confused. Then the realization began to dawn, but too slowly to matter. The countdown had already started, and the whole room could feel it. The hum of the restaurant felt heavier now, as though the air itself had taken sides. Every whisper seemed to vibrate through the marble floors. Glasses paused mid-air. Knives stopped cutting. It was that fragile kind of silence right before something breaks. At the corner podium, Isabella Tran stood frozen, her trembling hand still hovering above the reservation tablet. She could feel every stare pressing into her, like gravity had chosen her next. Clara's voice cut through the stillness, sharp as a blade. You're dismissed, Isabella. Clock out before you make this worse. Quote. The young hostess swallowed hard. But, she's right there, she said barely above a whisper. Her name Dr. Naomi Pierce, it's in the system. Table 4, VIP tier. Clara turned slowly, her practiced smile melting into open contempt. I said clock out. Naomi's gaze flicked toward Isabella, measured, assessing, but kind. Don't, Naomi said softly. You've done nothing wrong. Clara slammed her hand against the counter, startling a nearby couple. This is insubordination, she hissed. You're defending a liar. No, Isabella said, voice cracking but steady. I'm defending the truth. Every guest in earshot felt that line. It hung there, pure and dangerous. A woman near the bar began recording. A man in a tan blazer whispered. Finally, someone said it. Clara's cheeks flushed red. Security, she barked. Get her out, both of them. Dylan Ford stepped closer but hesitated. His instincts, the ones that had kept him out of trouble for years, were screaming that something about this situation wasn't right. Naomi turned to him calmly. Before you move, she said, ask yourself one thing. What's the penalty for detaining a client who owns the building? He blinked. Excuse me? Ask your legal department, Naomi replied, her voice soft but lethal. A low murmur rolled through the dining room. Guests were no longer pretending not to watch. Phones were raised now, bold and unapologetic. Every lens pointed at the woman in pink, calm, composed, untouchable. Clara, flustered, tried tried to regain control. Turn those off. This is a private establishment. Naomi's eyes narrowed just slightly. Private, she repeated. Yes, very private, especially when you erase names from your system. Clara's head snapped up. What did you say? Your hostess wasn't wrong, Naomi said, pulling out her phone. Check your screen again. Quote. Isabella hesitated, then tapped the system login once more. The tablet blinked to life. On the VIP list, under confirmed reservations, the name glowed bright. Dr. Naomi Pierce, Septimigi, Nulla PM, Table 4, Owner Tier. A stunned hush swept the room. Dylan's jaw tensed. Owner Tier? He muttered. Clara's eyes darted to the screen, then back to Naomi. That's not possible. That's a glitch. Naomi tilted her head, smiling faintly. The system's flawless. I designed it. Quote. That broke something in Clara. Her voice rose, desperate now. You think you can walk in here dressed like this and pretend you belong? Naomi stepped forward, the soft click of her heels louder than her words. Pretend? She echoed. You should know I don't pretend. I prove. For a second, the two women stood inches apart, one shaking with fear, the other radiating the kind of calm that came from real authority. Isabella exhaled shakily. She told you, she said, her voice trembling but proud. You just didn't listen. Naomi turned her head slightly toward the young hostess. You did, she replied, and that's why you'll still be here when this is over. And somewhere, deep in the hum of whispered recordings and hidden glances, the tide quietly turned. Clara just didn't realize it yet. At 7:06 p.m., the sound of heels against marble echoed like a countdown. Every second stretched thinner, tenser. Somewhere behind the bar, the jazz track looped, its melody now trembling under the weight of a moment everyone could feel coming. Clara's patience snapped first. That's it, she said, her voice rising, brittle as glass. Dylan, remove her, now. The security lead shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, maybe, I said now. Dylan stepped forward, slow and uncertain, his jaw tight. Naomi didn't flinch. She simply looked at him, not angry, not afraid, just steady. The kind of stillness that made lesser people doubt themselves. He hesitated mid-step. Are you refusing to leave? Naomi's tone was soft. I'm refusing to be erased. The line hit the room like thunder in a church. Even the clinking of glasses stopped. Then Clara did the unthinkable. She reached across the counter, grabbed Naomi's wrist, and hissed through her teeth. I said you're done here. A collective gasp rippled through the restaurant. Isabella froze. Someone at a corner table shouted, Don't touch her. Another phone went up, and another. Naomi didn't yank her hand back. She simply stared down at the fingers gripping her, calm as ice. That, she said, her voice low and even, was your last mistake. She pulled her wrist free, slow and deliberate, then turned her phone screen toward Clara. On it glowed a familiar interface, the internal dashboard of Eclipse Dining Group. Clara's eyes flickered, recognition, confusion, then dread. Naomi tapped once. Somewhere in the background, an alert pinged on the restaurant's control tablet. System notice. Corporate audit activated, owner. Oversight mode enabled. Clara's mouth opened, but nothing came out. For Naomi, the moment unfolded in slow motion. The smell of seared rosemary drifted from the kitchen. The muted chatter of witnesses melted into the distant hum of a memory she'd buried years ago. She was 24, in Atlanta, a rooftop bar. She had come to celebrate her first real estate sale, small, but hard won. She dressed modestly, smiled at the hostess, only to hear the same phrase that now echoed here. We don't serve people like you. That night, she sat in her car outside, too ashamed to cry, too angry to drive. She promised herself one thing, that no one would ever decide her worth again. Now, back in the present, she met Clara's trembling stare and said quietly, You remind me of that man, the one who thought a dress code could measure dignity. Clara stammered, You set this up. Naomi shook her head. I gave you an opportunity to rise. You chose to fall. Isabella spoke from the side, her voice shaking but sure. She warned you. Dylan's radio crackled in his hand. Control to floor. Confirm owner verification pending. He looked down at the ID on Naomi's screen, then back at her face. Dr. Pierce? He asked, almost reverent. Naomi nodded once. In the flesh. Quote. A gasp rippled through the crowd. One woman whispered, "She owns this place?" Another answered softly, "No, she owns them." Clara stumbled backward. You can't do this." Naomi stepped forward, her pink suit catching the light like armor. "You're right," she said, voice level. "I already did." The system behind the counter pinged again. Access revoked. Clara James manager level. Clara's face went white. Her badge blinked red, and in that frozen instant, Naomi's past and present aligned perfectly. The humiliation she'd endured years ago was still echoing, but this time, it was answering back. Justice, quiet and composed, had finally taken its seat at the table. At 7:07 p.m., the hum of the dining room had turned electric. Every phone camera shimmered like a dozen small truths waiting to be uploaded. But Naomi wasn't looking for virality. She was looking for justice, precise, immediate, irreversible. Clara stood motionless, her access badge blinking red at her side. The glow painted her hand like a warning flare she couldn't put out. This isn't possible," she whispered. "You can't just walk in here and—" Naomi interrupted her, calm and deliberate. "And what? Be treated like a customer instead of a threat?" She took out her phone again, swiped once, and the restaurant's sleek sound system chimed faintly the tone of an internal broadcast line connecting to Eclipse Dining's HQ. "Naomi, Carla, this is Pierce. Activate Protocol 6. Carla, on speaker, confirmed. Recording initiated. Local management under audit. Do you wish to proceed publicly?" Naomi's eyes flicked up to the crowd. Yes, they wanted an audience. Clara tried to snatch back authority. "You're humiliating yourself," she said, voice trembling. "You think this little show makes you powerful?" Naomi turned to her slowly. "Power isn't loud, it's logged." Quote. Behind the bar, the tablet screen flashed. Eclipse Network owner online. System access granted. Every employee froze. The waiters who'd been whispering, the sommelier who'd rolled his eyes when Naomi walked in. Even Dylan, the security lead, stood still as the interface lit up like judgment itself. "Carla," Naomi said, her voice cool as marble. "Show me tonight's roster." The tablet responded instantly, pulling a list of staff IDs, their complaint histories, and service notes. Clara's name was highlighted in yellow. 5 unresolved bias reports, 3 filed by minority employees. Naomi didn't look surprised. "I suspected as much," she murmured. Then, for the first time, she addressed the room, not just Clara. "For anyone wondering, this isn't a stunt. I came here tonight because I believe respect shouldn't depend on appearances. I wanted to see if our new acquisition lived up to its promise." She turned back to Clara. "It doesn't." The words fell like a gavel. Clara's breathing quickened. You set me up." Naomi shook her head. "No. I gave you 7 minutes to prove your humanity." From the back of the room, a middle-aged man in a gray sweater muttered, "She gave you a chance. You just didn't see it." Isabella, still standing by the podium, looked between Naomi and the crowd. Her voice wavered but carried. "She did what any guest deserves. She waited for basic decency." Naomi gave her a small nod. "Decency shouldn't be extraordinary." Quote. Carla's voice returned through the speaker. "Protocol 6 complete. Documentation locked. Would you like to escalate?" Naomi glanced at Clara, now pale, shaking, her authority dissolving with each heartbeat. "Proceed to escalation," she said softly. A pause. Then, corporate compliance notified, disciplinary authority transferred. Naomi turned the phone face up on the counter. Her reflection stared back steady, unbothered, quietly triumphant. "You know what the irony is, Clara?" she said finally. "You thought you were protecting the restaurant's image. You just destroyed it in front of the person who built it." The audience silent, breath held, watched as Naomi's calm became command. The transformation wasn't loud or dramatic. It was surgical. And as she slid her phone back into her clutch, she gave one last order. "Lock local systems. Effective immediately. Management access suspended. HR to report directly to me at 8 a.m. Quote. Carla confirmed, her voice clear and unwavering. Done. The room didn't erupt, it exhaled. Phones lowered. Heads turned. Naomi Pierce, still in her pink suit, smiled faintly and said, "Now, let's finish dinner." Because power, when it's real, doesn't shout. It simply resets the room. No one in the glass ember moved. The low hum of the refrigerator in the bar was suddenly the loudest sound in the room. Clara's breath hitched, shallow, trembling, the kind of sound made by someone who just realized their whole world had shrunk to the size of one mistake. Naomi stood at the center of it all, a soft silhouette in pink. She wasn't angry. She wasn't smug. She looked almost peaceful, the way a storm looks when it finally stops pretending to be clouds. "You tore up a reservation in a restaurant I own." The sentence wasn't shouted. It didn't need to be. The words moved through the air like slow lightning, quiet, elegant, and lethal. The entire dining room froze. Every phone lowered. Even the candles seemed to flicker in place. Clara blinked rapidly. What did you say?" Naomi stepped closer, each click of her heels deliberate. "I said," she repeated softly, "you denied service to your employer, and you did it with a smile." Isabella exhaled, almost in disbelief. Dylan, the security lead, took one careful step back, pulling his earpiece out, as if it suddenly burned to wear it. A guest near the corner whispered, "She's the owner." Another murmured, "Oh my God, it's her." The recognition spread like fire through dry grass. Clara's voice cracked. You're lying." Naomi reached into her clutch, pulled out a slim black folder, and laid it on the counter between them. The Eclipse Dining Group emblem shimmered in gold under the chandelier. She opened it like a verdict. Inside were the signed acquisition papers. Clara's name appeared twice, once as local manager, the glass ember, and again beneath a line that now felt like prophecy. Staff acknowledgement of transitional ownership. Naomi looked up, calm and absolute. "You signed this 5 days ago." Clara's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, but no sound followed. From the speakers, Carla's voice returned, steady as glass. "Ownership confirmation verified. Dr. Naomi Pierce, 100% controlling interest." Recording continues. The reaction was immediate. A soft gasp from the guests. A quiet, "Lord have mercy," from someone at the bar. Then silence again, because what do you say when the person you humiliated is suddenly the highest authority in the room? Naomi turned toward the crowd. "This isn't about a table," she said evenly. "It's about how easily some of you decided who did and didn't belong." Quote. She looked back at Clara. "You didn't see me because you weren't looking. You saw a story you made up and you performed it perfectly." For a long second, Clara just stared, her lower lip trembling, her badge still blinking red. Naomi's voice dropped to a near whisper. "You mistook silence for weakness. That's your last mistake." Dylan finally spoke, low and cautious. "Dr. Pierce, what would you like us to do?" Naomi met his eyes. "Document everything." Every word said, every witness present. Tonight becomes policy training across the company. Clara's legs wobbled. She tried to speak. "You can't fire me in front of them." But the words came out hollow, already too late. Naomi closed the folder. "I don't fire people, Clara. They fire themselves." The room exhaled in stunned quiet. A woman near the back began to clap, once, then again, hesitant at first, then louder. Others followed. The sound built slowly, not as celebration but as catharsis. Naomi didn't smile. She simply nodded once, eyes clear, voice calm. "Let this be the moment you remember. Respect is the dress code here." And with that, the glass ember, once a temple of quiet prejudice, was reborn in the sound of applause. The applause faded, replaced by the uneven sound of heavy breathing. Clara's, mostly. Her chest rose and fell too fast, as though she could still outrun the truth pressing down on her. This isn't fair," she stammered, voice unraveling. You baited me." Naomi didn't move from where she stood. Her tone remained quiet, each word placed like a final signature. "No, Clara, I tested you." She glanced toward the bar, where Isabella still stood rooted in place, eyes wide and glassy. "And some of you passed." The young hostess looked stunned. I just told the truth." Naomi smiled faintly. Exactly. Then she turned to Dylan, her calm now threaded with precision. Call all floor staff to the lounge. Dylan nodded and spoke into his earpiece. All employees to the front. Within minutes, waiters and bartenders appeared from every direction. Some looked scared, others curious. A few already understood. Naomi reached for her phone. Carla, we're proceeding with full local termination and reform protocol. Carla, speaker. Understood. Confirmed authority logged. You may proceed. Naomi looked at the gathered staff. You all have a choice tonight. You can keep pretending not to see what happens here, or you can help rebuild what this brand was supposed to stand for. A waiter whispered, She's really the owner? Naomi turned toward him. For now, she said, depending on how you behave tonight. Quote. Someone laughed nervously. No one joined them. The sound system chimed again. Access terminated. Clara James, manager. ACCSS terminated. Simon Hall, assistant manager. The staff gasped as their badges blinked red, one by one. Naomi didn't flinch. You called security on a paying guest. You dismissed your own hostess for speaking truth. And you tried to erase a name from a system designed to keep us accountable. Her tone never rose. It didn't need to. Clara's lip trembled. You can't just. Naomi's eyes locked on her. I can, and I did. Carla's voice returned. Corporate HR confirms full authority transfer. All local management privileges suspended. Naomi set the phone on the counter. Its speaker filled the room with administrative finality. Effective immediately, she continued. The Glass Ember is closed to the public until retraining and compliance reviews are complete. Guests will receive full refunds and complimentary credits. Kai, someone in the back whispered. She shut it down. Naomi turned to the guests, her gaze softening just slightly. No, I'm reopening it under new management. Her attention shifted back to Isabella. You'll oversee tonight's guest coordination. You'll report directly to me starting tomorrow morning. Isabella's mouth fell open. Me? Naomi nodded. You spoke when it counted. That's leadership. The young woman blinked, tears welling. Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Quote. Clara stumbled backward, her pride collapsing faster than her voice. You ruined me. Naomi's response came quiet, but surgical. No, I just turned on the lights. The staff murmured. A few clapped softly. The applause wasn't for punishment, it was for release. Naomi's phone buzzed one last time. Carla, corporate audit team en route. Eta, 15 minutes. Naomi slipped the phone back into her clutch, looked at the stunned room, and said simply, tonight wasn't about firing anyone. It was about ending the silence that let this happen. The lights of the Glass Ember dimmed slightly, as if the building itself was exhaling. Guests began to nod, murmur approval, whisper to one another about what they'd just witnessed. And for the first time since she'd walked in, Naomi Pierce smiled not out of triumph, but recognition. Justice, finally, had a witness list. By the time the corporate audit team arrived, the Glass Ember no longer felt like a restaurant. It felt like a reckoning. The air still shimmered with tension, but underneath it something new had taken root. Relief. Naomi stood near the center table, her pink suit glowing softly under the low lights. She didn't look like a CEO giving orders anymore. She looked like a teacher standing in the ruins of a lesson finally learned. The guests had stayed, not out of curiosity, but solidarity. Phones were lowered. Wine glasses stood untouched. Every eye followed her not with shock now, but respect. Carla's voice came through the speakerphone one last time. Dr. Pierce, all actions verified. Corporate compliance is live on your feed. You may proceed with final remarks. Naomi nodded. Thank you, Carla. She turned to face the room, the staff, the guests, even Clara, who now stood against the far wall, silent and hollow-eyed. What happened here tonight, Naomi began, her voice calm but weighted, wasn't about one mistake. It was about a culture, a reflex, that still decides worth by appearance. Her gaze swept across the room, landing briefly on Isabella. But what's broken can be rebuilt. By people brave enough to say, this isn't right. She paused, letting the silence breathe. The city lights spilled through the tall windows, catching in the tears glinting on Isabella's cheeks. Naomi continued, softer now. Years ago, I stood outside a restaurant just like this. I was told I didn't belong. I drove home that night believing them. But tonight, I walked into this room to prove something not to you, but to myself that dignity doesn't need permission. Clara blinked rapidly, her voice trembling. I didn't mean. Naomi held up a hand. You meant every word. That's the problem. But meaning can change. She took a slow breath. You'll have the chance to relearn. If you want it. Carla's voice chimed through once more. Reform plan logged. Dr. Pierce, do you want to initiate staff reinstatement reviews? Naomi looked around, then nodded. Yes, some people here still deserve their place. She turned to Isabella. You'll lead the transition team. Effective immediately. The young hostess gasped. Me? I'm not. Naomi smiled. Qualified? You just proved you are. You spoke up when it counted. That's the only credential that matters tonight. The staff exchanged glances. For the first time, the fear began to lift. Naomi gathered the folder and closed it carefully. Starting tomorrow, the Glass Ember will reopen as more than a restaurant. It will be the first pilot site for Eclipse's new initiative, the Dignity Standard. Every location we own will follow it. Every employee will be trained under it. A few guests clapped softly, then louder. The applause swelled not chaotic, but reverent. Naomi raised her hand gently to quiet them. Don't thank me. Hold me accountable. Hold each other accountable. Because the moment we stop watching, prejudice starts whispering again. She turned toward the door, ready to leave. But before she stepped out, she looked back one last time and said, I didn't raise my voice tonight. I raised the standard. Outside, the street buzzed with ordinary life cars passing, laughter spilling from nearby cafes. Inside, the restaurant stood still, forever changed. And somewhere between the marble floors and the pink reflection in the glass doors, justice stopped being an idea and finally became visible. ChatGPT có thể mắc lỗi? OpenAI không?